Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Antry, Associate Editor of Audioholics, and I am here with
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And if you come to our website and click on our YouTube link, it goes to our page, not just youtube.com, because we are awesome.
because we have the very basic of web page design skills, and that
That
is what is required to make sure that you just don't go to YouTube.
last week's podcast title for the episode is my favorite now. It makes me giggle and laugh every time I see it. So I have amused myself if no one else.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that you're amused because that was a sort of epic moment in this podcast history where we found out that I move this thing. That shouldn't make too much noise. Who knows? Anyways, yes, this is the podcast where we answer your AV and home theater questions. To get your question answered, all you have to do is ask. Ask by emailing us at rob@avrant, tom@avrant, or question@avrant.com. Come to the website, www.avrant.com. Leave a comment there if it's possible. It probably isn't. I think I broke it. Don't really care. Because you can always go to facebook.com/avrant podcast, where we will answer you much more quickly because we pay attention to the Facebook page quite a bit. If you really wanted to have something answered and it's only 140 characters or less, you can go to Twitter and hit us up at First Reflect for Rob, at avrant_Tom for me, or at Austin Pond for our producer Austin, who also has his own podcast called We Watch Movies. It's a podcast about vinyl and vinyl lovers, collecting vinyl.
Gotta keep adding to that collection of things that his podcast is not.
His podcast is an eclectic mix of things that his podcast does, none of which involves movies and or watching them.
We are being sarcastic in case anyone can't quite know what we're, sometimes people get confused. So yeah, it is about movies. They didn't go nuts, but
no,
we're having fun with it.
Austin's like, people are, see, I think this works better because they're going like, it's about vinyl, really? And then it's about movies. And they're like, well, it's just about movies. Like, well, the title of the pot. Okay, forget it. All right, so CE is going on right now, and there's tons of news. But before we do that, let's talk about our listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, you can do any number of things. Basically, in some way, support the podcast. If you would like to financially support the podcast, we would very much appreciate it. Since we think we've determined that my M Audio Fast Track Pro is on its last legs because,
Yeah,
Rob sounds like a robot to me. A statically robot that is
Oh.
mostly in my left ear, and occasionally in my right ear.
Well, hopefully the YouTube video doesn't sound like that. I
don't
can
think it
be
will.
quite certain that my local recording, which will be in the audio version, sounds fine. Yes, folks, if you want to continue to be able to hear Tom on the podcast, chip in a few bucks there. Help out the guy. Or chip in a lot of bucks so we can buy a whole new computer. That would actually be fabulous.
That would actually be fabulous. But since right now Tom's wife is out of work and we are counting every single penny, there will be no expenditure of anything until someone gets a job around here. So yeah.
I have a $10,000 repiping of my building thing coming up, so that's why I can't afford to buy Tom anything right now. Because
no one's asking anybody to buy anybody anything.
Yeah.
But if you do want to support the podcast financially, go to www.avrant.com and click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. A little boop. And you can leave us a PayPal donation, which if you have a PayPal account, it's really easy. If not, then you can use a credit card. They accept that as well. If you cannot support us in that way, you just find some other way to support us. Like, well, first of all, let's thank our financial backers this week, Brian and Steve.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you,
Very
guys.
much
We really
it.
appreciate it. We really do. And that money will go towards eventually buying me another DAC and other podcast-related things. We also want to thank Ash, who, if you've been on the Facebook page, you saw that we have some new artwork. And if you have one of those podcast players that downloads the artwork, because I attach it to every single podcast, and I usually rotate between the three that we've black one, the coffee one, and the rat one. Well, we're going to have another black one, but it's going to have...
It was a mouse.
It's a whatever. Anyways,
a rodent.
It's a rodent of some sort. Anyways, this one's going to have like electrical like like EKG looking thing, like a lightning bolt. It kind of looks like a frequency response thing. Very, very cool. Ash made that for us, so we thank Ash for the new artwork. Thank you,
Yeah,
Ash.
that was awesome. Thank you, Ash. I
I
really like it. I know
I
Tom
think
does.
I think it's probably my favorite out of all of them now, and that's saying something since I made the coffee one.
Yeah.
So I really like the coffee one for quite some time, but I am. This is definitely my new favorite one, and I showed it to some people that I work with, and they were very excited about it as well. Not that they knew anything about the podcast, nor have they ever listened to it. So, anyways, we also want to say, thank Scott. His theater is now an SVS featured customer theater, and he mentioned this in the Q&A section, though they did not link us, which I was disappointed about, but that's all right. They did mention us in there. And we actually had another listener, Kevin, who noticed that and gave us a shout out on Twitter with the link in case we missed it. So we got thank you, Scott, and thank you, Kevin, for noticing it.
Thank you, guys. It's really cool. Scott's Theater turned out great.
Yes.
And it's a wonderful example of putting all the things we talk about on the podcast into practice. Obviously, the cost of building a whole room like that, not insignificant, but at the same time, not nearly as expensive as what some people end up going through with methods that aren't even as effective. So what excited me the most was in his Q&A with SVS, he said they can turn up their theater to almost a full reference volume, go upstairs, and they don't hear anything. Yeah. And I'm like, that is awesome. That is so sweet. So,
very nice.
Awesome, Scott.
Lastly, we want to thank James again. He sent us samples of the printed fabric DIY acoustic covers that he'll be selling on his Rainy Lake Audio website. You can go there now. And if you mentioned AV Rant when you're ordering it, you're going to get a 10% discount just for mentioning us. We are not going to see that 10% come our way. It's just 10%.
Well, it's a discount. How would that? If you charge 10% extra and gave it to us, there you go. There's a deal.
Better. James has an idea. Anyways, James sent us a sample. Did you get your sample yet? I
did get my sample, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm actually, why don't you describe it? I'm going to go grab it because it's just in the other room.
Okay.
I'm going to go grab mine. I'll bring it so we can show it on the YouTube video. So
yeah, so it's a piece of fabric. It looks like it was a white base. It's more or less like a linen, like imagine sort of like a pillowcase cover. That's essentially what the fabric is like. So yeah, white background, more or less the size of a 2 foot by 4 foot panel with a few extra inches around the border so that you could wrap it around the edges and then staple it onto the back of the frame. One of the notes that we gave to James was that we could use more fabric around the edges if it's actually going to go on a 2x4 panel. Of course, you can make the panel a little bit smaller so that would work, but a little bit more fabric would be helpful there. And then the actual quality of the print looks very good. I mean, if you're right up close to it, of course, it does look like something printed on fabric. It's not like it looks like a pure canvas or something like that. But from any distance back, looks pretty darn good. Yeah, Tom is now holding it up. This is a reason to come to YouTube, folks, and actually look at the video.
I don't know how much of this you can see.
Yeah, well, we can see a little bit of it. I think it's upside down. It's upside down.
Is it upside down? Oh,
it's upside down. Yeah.
Sorry.
It says movie time.
Movie time at the
and
top.
there it is. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, you can see it there. So yeah, very clearly visible. The red actually pops out really nicely.
It does.
On the print.
You know what? It is pretty good. I thought that the colors are a little bit washed out, but they're not too bad. It's hard to know without having something to really compare it to. You said that you need more fabric on this edge, right?
Yes.
Already,
I could use it. Anyway.
I agree. I think this needs to be 6 inches. You need 4 inches because if they have a 4-inch deep panel, like 2 inches above whatever they ask for, whatever the size is that they, So if they're going to have a 4-inch deep panel, then it should be 6 inches. And I think this border here needs to be black.
Right.
I'm not saying you have to print it on black, but you have to print black around this because I do not want white on the sides of my panels. I want black.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, the fabric itself, Tom did give James some feedback, and we thought it could use a little bit more open weave.
Yes.
Because the easy test, if you ever want to know if a fabric is good for an acoustically transparent purpose, you do what Tom's doing on the video right now. You hold it up to your mouth and you try to blow some air through it, and you see how much the fabric resists your ability to blow air through it.
If resist 0. Is what you're looking for. 0 resistance.
Yeah. I mean, if you're printing on it, it might be a little bit thicker than that just because, like, if you imagine speaker grill cloth, which essentially gives you no resistance, if you hold that up, you can more or less see through it as well. And that probably wouldn't be great for printing an image on it. But you want as little resistance to that air flowing through as you can get so that it's acoustically transparent.
I told James that I thought this felt exactly like pillow
Yep,
casing.
I mentioned that while you
Yeah,
were away.
yeah. So that was sort of my reaction. But
Yeah.
kind of what I think that you should be asking James for when you get people to order these things is you want to know two things. You want to know what the image size is going to be that they want, and then
Mm-hmm.
you're going to want to know the panel size that they're going to put it on and the thickness as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that way you can determine how much to print. So what there would not, theoretically be is this line right here, either actual line or like one like what the guy did in our write up, the Rob guy did in our write up, is he put like a 1 or 2 pixel border, like a white border, to help him
Right.
align his image, and then everything else was kind of black around it. So I think that that's what you need to do. But hey, it's a great start. So we got
Mm-hmm.
the alpha versions of this. So he's gonna probably order some more, get some more samples, and then these things will be ready to go. So it's a good start. We're
Mm-hmm.
excited about it.
And it's a
Definitely
very
excited.
cool example if you do see the video, just what it's easy to print images on fabric now apparently, which is kind of cool. So
That is
as
a
far
thing.
as blending acoustic treatments into your decor without offending anyone's eyeballs, it's like, hey, if you were going to have any artwork on the wall anyway, now here's a way to kill two birds with one stone. So
So
very cool.
yeah, I'm gonna try to. Did you actually mount yours to your
No,
panels?
because I would have had to like put it over one of my existing panels, so I
Yeah,
just have the fabric still loose, like yours.
yeah. I'm gonna put it on one of my panels eventually.
Yeah.
Maybe that one right there. I don't know. There's one right there. All right, so CD is going on right now,
Yeah.
which is Consumer Electronics
Design and
Design.
Integration Association.
Yeah, I can never remember that last part.
Mm.
Anyway, so I have found that CD is in Dallas this year, which I would really like to go.
Hmm.
I could have gone, but I didn't want to. I mean, I wanted to, but I didn't want to. And I'm glad I didn't, because being away from home right now probably would have been bad, considering we have no income or no real income. So it's in Dallas. I got some cousins there. It would have been nice to go, but there's tons of news. So we're just going to touch on some of this
Yeah.
stuff. Some of the things that kind of caught my eye as they came across. JBL Synthesis and Trinov 3D Audio have partnered to create the JBL Synthesis SDP75. It's a 32 channel pre-pro based on the Altitude 32. It'll
Yeah.
cost about the same as the Altitude, which is 50 grand. And JBL will release a separate companion Arcos equalizer, which they haven't given a price for, but it's not going to be under $1,000.
Yeah, think expensive. Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of interesting because the Altitude 32 right now is the only processor out there that can do 32 channels, which isn't even as many as Atmos can do in full. Atmos can do 34 plus subwoofers, so even there you're still limited. But yeah, so neat. I haven't seen JBL and Trininov get together before. So it's sort of a first. And JBL, of course, does have their Arcos system for auto setup and EQ and that. So they're keeping
Right.
that. But otherwise, I mean, the Trinov Altitude 32 is a PC. If you look at the back, it has an I/O shield
Yeah.
just like a PC. So there's an Intel processor inside there. They've written the software and charge you $50,000 for it.
There you go. Oralex has their new RLX Room Layout Express online application. It's garbage. If you'd like to try it out, you're more than welcome to, but it's absolute garbage. No matter what you put in it, it's going to give you the same results. I've put in like 3 different things, and I keep getting. These are
Uh,
These are our 3 types of panels that we offer. You can pick one of these,
yeah.
and if you did put in subwoofer, here's a subdued, or whatever they're
Oh,
called.
okay. Oh, that's what that check marked. Yeah, mine just since I'm in Canada and I couldn't enter a zip code, it just told me to use their regular fill out the form and send it into them. I'm like, well, thanks, online app. That was supremely helpful. That
It's believe me, it is just as helpful as being here. There's just something. Yeah, if they still have the room analysis, you need to do that. That is
yeah,
actually helpful.
yeah.
This is not helpful. This is
Or
just
other panel
fire.
makers also offer free room advice.
Yeah,
Everybody's on board. So GIC does that. ATS Acoustics does that, or it was ATS ATC. I can't
it's
remember
not
now.
ATC.
Anyway,
No, no.
they all do it.
Anyways, all right. So I thought that was cool. They that I sent the link out saying, "Hey, look at Orlex is doing another room
Yeah,
thing. It's gonna be awesome." And I clicked on the went, "Oh, it's garbage." Um,
ATS. I was right. ATS
there
Acoustics.
you go. Dyn Audio has a new set of speakers called
Mm-hmm.
Emit. these are entry level speakers, and their prices are very similar to the SVS Prime series. So somewhere what like under $1,000 for
It's well,
you
they
know, pairs.
1900 a pair for their
For
towers.
the towers, 1900.
Yeah,
Too
950 a
good.
pair for their 6.5 inch bookshelves, and then they have 5.25 inch
Yeah,
ones. I think are
they
seven
don't
fifty
look
a
at
pair.
all like Infinity speakers, though. Not at all. If you go there expecting to see speakers that look just like Infinity speakers, you are definitely going to be disappointed because I did not look at these and think, are you sure that you just didn't rebadge some Infinity speakers? Because that's really what's looked like's happening here.
But I'm wondering if like Andrew Jones has basically had an effect on the industry at large because I mean Dyn Audio has never positioned themselves as an affordable speaker company. Good speakers, definitely.
Yeah,
Expensive speakers for sure. And now they're like, hey, let's get a taste of
it's
this.
certainly. Hey, I would not put that on Andrew Jones as being something that he's personally affected. The
Uh,
entire industry is
yeah,
scraping deeper
I
these
guess
days
so.
because they're trying to, not go out of business, stuff like that. Yeah.
Alrighty.
All right, Cedia. Wait, we were talking about Cedia.
Yeah,
Sony's got oh, this is from you.
this is
Sony's got a laser-based 5,000 lumen 4K HDR projector, the VPL W5000 ES. It
mm-hmm.
costs 60 grand.
Yeah,
It'll go really well with your new JBL synthesis turn-off
exactly.
PC thing.
But yes,
But it exists.
yeah, that's
And
that's what excites me is that it exists. It is a real thing that you will be able to buy laser based. They're saying like gets to like over 90% of the Rec 2020 gamut since it is actually a laser light engine with three separate chips, one each for red, green, blue. 5,000 lumens is definitely enough to start looking like HDR as long as your screen isn't absolutely enormous. So just the fact that it is a real thing now that is not like a Christie digital $180,000 cinema projector. This is a thing. So hopefully it'll get cheaper. They do have some 4K lamp based HDR compatible projectors, but they start at 10,000 or 15,000. So still very expensive, but obviously less than 60. So, but they're lamp based, so they don't have the wide colors.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, also, Kaleidoscape is all in with Vidity on their new eight. And Vidity is the full movie streaming
Yeah, well, my
audio
hope was that it
service.
would basically be identical to Ultra HD Blu-rays, but so far they don't have full lossless audio or immersive audio. The picture quality is the same as what Ultra
Yeah.
HD Blu-ray will be, but yeah,
So Kaleidoscape, of course, is offering you such
yeah.
reasonable things as their Terra server, which only costs a paltry 8 grand,
Uh-huh.
and their Strato player, which is a reasonable $3,500. I swear.
Expensive, but it's less expensive than they used to be.
Yeah.
Let's
The
give them
movies
that
themselves
much.
are going to run about $30 though,
Yeah,
and some of
same
them.
as what they've said discs will cost. So
Yeah. Yeah, not super excited about paying $30 for a movie. Just gonna throw
yeah,
that out
well, I
there.
mean, Blu-rays were about that when they first came out. So
Yeah, I still don't buy them.
yeah,
Yeah, I still don't unless they're like if it's not like $15 or less, I'm not interested. I don't care how good the movie is. Like I got mad. Like one time somebody bought me something. I don't know who it was. It was a Christmas. It was like Iron Man 3. And first of all, I hadn't seen it yet. I'm like, don't buy me a movie. Don't buy a movie I haven't seen unless you've seen it and you know I'll like it because then it'll be in my movie collection and I'll look at it and I'll be mad at it every
ah,
time I see it up there as being a movie I don't like and now it's there and I have to show it to people. They have to see it and go, "Oh, you bought Iron Man 3? Huh? Really? That movie kind of sucked." Like, yeah. Anyways, uh yeah, so at 15 bucks or less, and I have to have seen it first. And I'm interested to hear that Logitech and Harmony, or I guess is it Logitech Harmony now, or they
it is.
just
Well, Logitech owns the Harmony
yeah.
line. Yes.
So Harmony has a new hub-based remote controls, a couple of them, the Elite and the Companion. The Elite looks like it's basically an upgraded one,
Mm-hmm.
or Ultimate or whatever they're calling that thing.
Ultimate was the one that it replaced. Yep,
And then the Companion is the one without the screen.
that's right. Without the touch screen.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't seem to be like that much of a difference though, right?
No, but they've changed the button layout, which was the complaint that I certainly had about the Ultimate, where they put all the transport controls
At the
way up at
top.
the very top of the remote and then put the screen below it. So every time you went to hit like pause or skip forward, you almost always hit the screen accidentally with like the bottom part of your thumb or something like that. So I'm very happy to see the transport controls moved where they should be. The screen's at the top. They completely did away with the number pad, the number keypad.
Which is fine because
It's just
I have to
moved
use
onto
all
the
of
screen now.
zero.
Yeah. But what they've done is they added a whole bunch of dedicated buttons for home control things. So light switches,
Right.
switches that you can control, electrical outlets, things like that, to shades, all that kind of stuff. So they have really gone in on the smart home connected features. They also released a new companion $100 hub that attaches to the original Harmony hub, which adds Zigbee and Z-Wave support. So if you use Zigbee or Z-Wave home automation systems, now you can add that right into your Harmony system. So pretty cool. They're getting on board with that. And while it's limited to 15 home theater devices like TVs and receivers and sources and stuff like that, you can have an unlimited number of smart home devices. So as many lights and switches and shades and locks and stuff like that as you want. No limit on the number of devices there.
That's cool.
Cool. Yeah.
Also in the news, which is not on our list here, is that I got those electrostatic speakers. They are sitting in a box
From
in the
Jansen?
other room from Jansen. Yeah,
Cool.
they are the bookshelves, and they have some stupid name. It's like the 1.1s or 2.1s. I don't know what they are called. I can never remember. Anyways, in the last podcast, I did link you up to a PDF because his site is like Flash based. I'm like, dude, are you serious? I gave him a hard time about that like years ago. I'm like, your site sucks. Like, you can't link to it. You can only link to like the one
Mm.
main page, and no one was. I want to link to that, anyways. So I linked to a PDF, which is sort of their actual the user manual. And if you actually scroll through it, if you scroll through that user manual towards the end, he was like talking about break-in and stuff like that. He's like,
Mm.
yeah, some people think it works, we don't, but if you can, if you want to, you can. And if there's no evidence that thicker wire will do you any good, so normal 12 gauge wire will be fine for longer runs. If you want to use something a little bit thicker, that's fine. If you're really short, you can use something thinner. Doesn't really
Hmm.
matter. Power cords don't make any difference either. Like all the way through, like just like.
Nice.
And I kind of talked to him a little bit about marketing and how hard of a time he was having because he didn't believe any of that stuff because it's not true. So he doesn't talk about any of that stuff. So people are like, "Well, what about the speaker cables? What speaker cables do you use?"
Uh-huh.
I don't care. Lamp cord doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
These are electrostatic speakers, so they need to be plugged into a wall outlet where they sound
yeah.
better if I buy an aftermarket power cord.
And the
Yeah.
answer is no. He says no.
Hey, man, he could be like Denon and release silly cables and charge exorbitant prices because people ask for them.
I know, and that's why I said, I'm like, you kind of have to. He goes, well, I tell people, I've been telling people that they should let them break in for a certain amount of hours,
Uh,
but I know that it's really their ears that are
like
breaking in.
five seconds.
Well, he's like, a lot of people haven't heard anything that sounds like my
Right.
speakers before,
Yeah.
so they sound so different that they are
Mm-hmm.
like, different is weird and different is bad, and this gives them a chance to get to know the speakers beforehand. I'm like, I'm perfectly okay with that. Plus, if they believe in speaker break-in, let them believe in it. So right now, because everybody's gone at CDA and just getting back today, and nobody's answering emails. I am waiting for Sanus to give me an email back because I need different. He says my speaker stands are too tall.
Mm.
The speakers need a smaller speaker stand, so I have to see if I can get some speaker stands from them to
Okay.
use in the review. Oh, I wanted to. We'll have to do this later. We'll do this next podcast. Next podcast, I'll be reviewing the Creative Bluetooth speaker. It's
Right.
Sound Blaster Roar version 2 or whatever. The short version, the too long didn't read version, is I really like it.
Cool.
It's sort of amazing how much I thought I was going to hate this thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I ended up not. There's a couple of things I don't like about it, and there's some real oddness to it. Like, have you ever had a Bluetooth speaker and thought to yourself, you know what? I'm on a call right now. I wish I could record this. I wish my Bluetooth speaker could record this call. It can.
Oh.
I don't know why you would want this,
Hmm.
but it can. So we're going to talk more about that next week because I want to put that right up front. So around the show, one of us remember to put that in the show notes that we have to do
Okay.
the review right up front. So look for that next week. All right, so let's get on to the questions. And we've got
Yes.
more than a couple, considering I thought we were going to be like have nothing this week since we went through everything. Ian, he hasn't been able to see many movies late. He hasn't been to see many movies lately since his home theater is quote awesome unquote.
Yeah.
However, he did just go to see The Martian, which apparently is getting rave reviews, and everybody's very
I
excited
still
about
haven't
it.
seen it. I want to see it, but I haven't.
I don't really care. Uh, I feel like wait, now he gets stranded, right? Is that the deal?
On Mars. That's right.
On Mars.
Matt Damon.
Yeah. Is there money? Are there actual Martians with laser guns or anything like that?
I don't. I never read the book. I haven't seen the movie. I don't believe so.
All right. I'm not interested in this movie. Anyways, he knows that the sound seemed bigger in the movie theater somehow. Not louder, but bigger. He
Mm.
knows the speakers, amps, etc. at the movie theater are bigger, but that can't be it, right? So what gives movie theaters that big sounds?
The Room.
I was It's just a big space. I mean, it's just big. It's just physically large. It has nothing to do with the size of the speaker, other than the fact that you have to have big speakers to fill up that space.
Mhm.
But that's what gives it that big space, that big sound.
Yeah.
Your brain can interpret the way that the sound is moving around in that room as it is you are in a large space. Not only that, you know you're in a large space, and therefore that predisposes you to feel that way. Just like we were talking with Jonathan. I don't know if we talked did that on the podcast or it was after the podcast last week, where he was talking about this idea that he's going to have tower speakers first, and we said all you need is bookshelves. He's like, well, I'm afraid that they won't have a big enough sound. Well,
Mm.
clearly the size of the speaker does not make that much of a difference in how big the sound is if you have subwoofers and you're crossing them over. But your brain sees that smaller speaker and is going to be it's going to be harder to convince your brain that that
Mm.
sounds not somehow smaller than the sound that is coming out of a physically larger speaker.
Yeah,
So
like
there's all that.
a commercial movie theater is by no means anechoic. There's plenty
No.
of reflections going on, and that's what our brain uses to get a sense of the size of the space
They
that
put
we're in.
carpet on the walls. That's their
Hmm.
room treatment.
Yeah,
Carpet
that's about it.
on the walls. How much do
So,
you think that actually a base do you think that absorbs? Because it's about zero.
oh yeah, not much. They're counting on the bodies of human beings to
Yeah.
be their base trap, and just the sheer size of the room. So yeah, I mean, if you were blindfolded and just taken from a small room into a big room, you go from a small room in the back of a church out into the main hall, of the entire space. If you were blindfolded, you'd still know. As long as there's some little sounds being made, you would know that you moved from a small room into a big room. And the way that our ears do that is by taking in all of the ambient reflections that are coming around, and we're very good at getting that sense. It's one reason why going into an anechoic chamber is so weird, because there are no reflections at all, and our brain goes, where the heck am I? Am I in outer space right now? Because I have never been in an environment like this. Even in a wide open field, you still have the ground below you giving you some reflections. So it's a very weird feeling to be in an anechoic chamber. But yeah, it's the room that's making the difference. The only reason the amps and the speakers are bigger is so they can fill that size of room.
Yeah. So if you're trying to recreate that sound in your own home, which is very hard to do,
Mhm.
your really only option is to use one of those stupid TSPs. Like,
Yeah, well,
I mean,
that's what they're doing. They're adding some reverb delays to try and mimic that what happens when reflections come from a much larger space around you. But they so far haven't been that great at doing that.
and if you really want to test them, you have to get a Yamaha because they have all of them.
There you go.
They will never give them up. It's like a pacifier for those. It's like a binky. He does now. This is the guy who had the projector with the lamp went out really
Yeah.
fast, 500 hours. And he mentions that he does have an APC J25B UPS, uninterruptible power supply. Right?
A battery, in other words.
So basically, it's got a battery in it, so he was protected. Now, I want to back up and just make sure that it's very clear that I was using this opportunity of your question to stress having a battery backup. We didn't know one way or another if you did or not, but it was important just to kind of
Yeah, for everyone else.
for everybody
Yeah.
else. Anyways, he does have one, and he's pretty sure the issue was that he bought the projector refurbished and the lamp counter might have been reset, even though the bulb was not replaced. He's also tried to remind himself to clean the air filter. Yeah, my projector reminds me to clean the air filter whenever it turns off because it overheats. Because I am very bad about that. So, yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, do that.
Yep. Yep.
Gabe.
Regular maintenance of projectors is a thing that needs to be done.
That is true. Gabe is one of our longtime listeners. He's attends our after parties all the time, which we record these on Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And after we finish the podcast, usually around 11 p.m., we send out a Google invite. actually you have to go to G Plus. And I think you posted to Facebook and Twitter too, don't you?
Yeah, that's what we're doing now. It used to work nicely where we could invite multiple people, but now Google's like, no, you can only invite the people you really want to be in here, and a maximum of 10 of them. So, yeah, we're creating a Hangout after party once we are finished the recording session here, and then I am tweeting the link on my account at First Reflect. I am putting that link up on Facebook, facebook.com/AV Podcast, and Tom is putting the link on his Google Plus page, google.com/plus Tom Andry. So
Right.
you can find it.
And then you can join and talk to us. Anyways, Gabe does that all the time, and he's really into high end audio. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
Gabe invited me to go with him to this thing. He had an extra uh, something,
Ticket.
but ticket or whatever, and but I couldn't go. I mean, that was literally like the day my wife lost her job. I was like, nope. I think I'm gonna ask her if I could fly out to Colorado
Denver.
right now.
Yeah.
And then maybe next year. Anyway, so Gabe attended the Rocky Mountain Audio Festival, and some of his highlights, and he's
Mm-hmm.
written up extensively about this, about these. Darren Fong's Out of Your Head software, which uses his head-related transfer function to mimic binaural recordings through headphones using your computer. Now, how does this thing work, dude? Seriously?
Okay, so you take a regular stereo recording or a regular surround sound recording. It has to be on your PC because that's where the software is running. You run this out of your head software, and it analyzes the signal and runs it through a head related transfer function, which is actually Darren's own head related transfer function. So
Or
hopefully
his
your
actual head?
hopefully your head is similar to his head because then it will work the best. Um, but yeah, once it goes through there, then it's all pumped out of the headphone output, and what you're hearing then is a regular recording, but with a head-related transfer function applied to it, so that it's like a binaural recording. So you get the sense, if you're using in-ear monitors, that it's being played from actual speakers around you through headphones,
Yeah.
rather than that inside, which is why he called it out of your head, rather than that inside of your head type of
It'd be
effect that we
actually out
often
of
get.
his head, technically.
Yeah,
Is what
out
it
of
should
his
be.
head. That's right.
Out of
Yeah.
my head.
Yeah, this is
Uh,
something that Ray Coronado has wanted me to check out and review on the podcast for quite a while. So it's nice that Gabe got to hear it and brought it up on the podcast.
so he liked it. He tried it and liked
Yeah,
it.
he tried it. He liked it a lot. Yeah, and it was the common thing, which is that trying to mimic a center channel in front of you, a center speaker in front of you, that's the one thing that it really struggles with, because that's almost always the case with headphones. But he said all the other speakers, including the front left and the front right, got a really good sense that they weren't inside his head, that they were outside his head, actual speakers around him, a really good illusion that it was speakers playing rather than headphones. So cool. Something to check out.
It costs about $150, I think,
Mm-hmm.
for it, which is a lot cheaper than if you actually get this done, which you can actually
Yeah.
have you put little things in your ears and get
Yeah,
your
certainly
own.
cheaper than a Smith realizer. So
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper than that. But then again, you have to have Darren Fong's head, which sounds like
well, for it to be perfect. I mean, they've DTS is doing this with Headphone X using a dummy head as their head related transfer function. A generic
yeah.
dummy head. That's where they put the microphones
Darren
inside of
might
the
be a
ears of
dummy.
that. So
What do we know? I never met the guy.
don't think so.
Probably
He made
smart.
this. It'd be hard if he was inanimate.
That was true. Uh, yeah. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
He also liked Elac's debut series speakers, which he heard and was blown away by.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this last week on the after party with him. One of the things that it's almost always the case I find at Rocky Mountain and all these other like high-end shows is they're in these hotel
Mm-hmm.
rooms, and these people bring these massive speakers. I mean, I need you guys to understand, we're not talking about big floor standing speakers or big bookshelf speakers. We're talking 6, 8 feet tall
Mm-hmm.
speakers, that weigh 3, 4, 500 pounds. These things are massive, and they just clearly are going to have a problem in a hotel room that is 10 foot by 11 foot.
And they're not exactly going to be able to stretch out and strut their stuff in terms of
Yeah.
how loud they can play inside of a regular sized hotel room. It's a
So
little
generally
bit silly.
speaking, these smaller speakers people come away
Mm.
like, oh, I heard California Audio Technology speakers, which are $120,000, and they're massive, and they look like doggy chew toys for like
For a
Cerebus
T Rex.
or T-Rex, right? So anyways, and then the like, oh, but this bookshelf speaker really blew me away. Well, it was because it was the one speaker that was really well positioned for the space. That being said, I have no doubt that these are good sounding speakers because the history behind them and everything else. So
Yep.
I'm glad to hear that they're good, and we're gonna hear more from Jonathan later when he gets his
Mm-hmm.
because he's also getting them. He also heard a presentation about MQA, which is Master Quality Authenticated Audio, which Gabe wrote a 3-page article about, which
Mm-hmm.
I skimmed. Uh, and basically, this is a time alignment sort of thing, right?
It's
Basically,
yeah.
the
There's that and more. Yeah.
well, it goes from from the actual recording
Mm-hmm.
to the playback. So there's like a we called hash it. He hashes it, which
Yeah.
is basically gives it a way of making sure that that everything's coming out at the exact same moment that it was supposed to be coming out. Is what I
Yeah.
gleaned
So
from the skim.
the sort of basic idea of it is the whole premise of the idea is that they create a studio master, of course, and then that is normally translated into a CD or a downloadable format, be that FLAC or DSD or perhaps an MP3 or an AAC where it is lossy. So the whole premise is that regardless of what you're doing, the format that you hear it in is not exactly the same as the original master because they say there are these minute timing differences of like 5 or 8 microseconds, which of course is considerably faster than the sampling rate of a CD, for example. And they're saying because of that, there are these tiny little errors that are unavoidable. But with this process, if you have an MQA decoder, they can attach metadata to the audio and that will reconstruct it to be authenticated to be exactly the same as the original master. So if you play one of these MQA authored CDs or FLAC files or whatever through a regular player, it still plays just as normal. But if you have an MQA decoder and it has this MQA metadata attached to it in this hash format, then it will reconstruct the original master perfectly. That's their whole thing. It's not just that they're claiming it can be done, but it can actually be authenticated that it's right back there. I think the entire thing is completely unnecessary, but that's just my opinion.
So this is the thing I didn't really understand from what he said here. He heard about it
Uh huh.
and sounded interesting, but did he actually hear it?
Well, that was the funny thing. He heard an example of it. He said it sounded fantastic, but they refused to make a comparison of the MQA version versus the non-MQA version. They
Sounds exactly the
like
fucking same.
people he said everyone who was in there kept asking them if they could because I mean they were interested in it and they said this recording that you're playing for us sounds fantastic. Nobody said differently. But they're like, "Well, now can we hear the non-MQA version?" They're like, "No." So
So
I
much
mean,
crap.
yeah, you made a great recording, all right. I mean, AIX makes great recordings, 2L makes great recordings, lots of places make great recordings, and none of them have up to this point used MQA. And but they won't let you compare if it sounds any different. So
Yeah,
good luck.
I
This is
don't.
something Tidal is going to be doing, by the way. That's where you're most likely to hear it if you're on the Tidal streaming
Oh,
service.
right.
They're all on board with this thing.
Uh, yeah, I'm not super enthused that this is something that's gonna make any sort of difference, audible difference or not. It's certainly I'm all for accuracy, but I'm not all for let's make things overly complex just so that we can talk about how much better our system is.
Well, guess what hasn't had MQA all this time? Vinyl. And of course, all the people at Rocky Mountain Audio are like, well, vinyl is the ultimate format. Nothing can sound better, and it sounds better than everything else. So, yeah, this is, it's another one of these. We have to create something that we can market as being better than CD quality, right? And it's like, I'm sorry, we kind of solved audio. We did it decades ago. So,
We got this.
yeah.
Step away. Yeah. All right. Gabe enjoys 3 channel music recordings, such as the new SACD version of Belfonte at Carnegie Hall. Belafonte at Carnegie Hall.
Hmm.
I'm
It's a
falling
three
asleep
channel
just thinking
recording.
about that. Anyways, a 3 channel recording. That's the front 3 channels.
Yeah,
But he
left, center,
also
right.
enjoys 5 channel surround music. Is there
Hmm.
any way to expand 3 channel music into 5 channels? Because when he plays a 3 channel recording with his Oppo BDP 105 and his Marantz SR6008 receiver, it it takes it as a multi-channel
Mm-hmm.
input, and does not try to add the fourth and fifth channels with Dolby Pro Logic 2 or DTS Neo 6.
Mm-hmm.
So using the two-channel audio version isn't really an option because you would like to keep the defined center placement in the three-channel version.
Right.
Is there a way to do this?
Not with the way it's been encoded on that SACD. Essentially, it thinks it's a 5.0 recording.
And it
So
just put nothing in the back two channels.
that's right. So they've encoded nothing into the surround left and right channels, but the signal that the AV receiver is receiving or that the player is taking off of the disc, it assumes is 5.0 because that's the format, that's the container that they put it in.
Right.
So there isn't really a way to make this happen. You know, the up mixers will work with a stereo signal, which Gabe obviously already knows, but for the 3-channel version, it thinks there's already 5 channels there, so it's not even attempting to create any more. What you could do is use Dolby Pro Logic 2X and create surround back channels. That
More nothing? Wouldn't it just be nothing?
probably there might be some tiny little echoes from the front left and right because the surround back channels do sometimes do that. There sure wouldn't be much back there. You could also use an Atmos system with a Dolby Surround up mixer, or an Oro 3D, the Oro Matic up mixer. If you want to buy a whole new AV receiver and add height channel speakers, those will. I mean, the Oro Matic will take anything from mono all the way up to 7.1 and mess with it to add some height channels to it. But you're still not going to get surround left and right. That's just not going to happen. So
So no is the answer.
that's right.
Uh, yeah. Oh, speaking of channels and back channels and stuff like that. Yeah, that dude was totally right about the Xbox One.
Ah,
I
your
checked
camera
that out
moved,
like
by the
right
way.
after the podcast, and I was super irritated. Uh, it it does get rid of it puts all the surround material into the surround backs, and so I put it to 5.1, and then it mixed it into a
Into the surrounds.
full surround back, and so everything with the surrounds, and then it extended it, which
You
is
bumped your
fine.
camera, by the way, Tom, so you have no forehead right now.
Oh, fun. How's that better? No, I'm falling.
I think that's right. Yeah. Alrighty. So yeah, some interesting stuff there, and yeah, I'll move on to Nelson as Tom adjusts his camera. So Nelson ran Odyssey Mult EQ XT32. I believe he has the AVR X4100W. That's what I recall from his previous emails. I might be wrong about that,
Okay.
but he has a Denon model that runs Mult EQ XT32. So that much we know. So at the end of the Odyssey thing, they have several buttons, one of which is check results,
Right.
which basically shows you what it did. There's that. There's also in the manual setup a graphic EQ. That's available in the manual settings. And one of the things you can do with the graphic EQ, which if you activate it, actually turns off Odyssey because it's a manual graphic EQ. But one of the options there is to copy the settings that Odyssey created for the EQ, and then you can manually adjust those. So you can make that your starting point, is
Right.
what Odyssey created. So he looked at all of these things and looked at the graphs that came out as a result, but he wasn't quite sure what they were showing him, what they meant. So he's hoping we could explain a little bit. And he sent us some screen captures of what he was looking at there.
Right. So most of these graphs, like the first one he sent us, at least the first one I have on here, it shows us what levels they sent it at, plus or
Mm-hmm.
minus, whatever. Most of it looks like the fronts are boosted up a little bit, and everything
Mm-hmm.
else, except for the top middles, are cut in some way, shape, or form, which is just what they did to level match everything,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine. And then
It's an
there's
indication
graphs.
he's physically sitting closer to his surround and surround back speakers than his fronts, which is very common. That's what
That
we
would
would
be cool.
expect.
Uh, then there's these graphs, and
Mm-hmm.
basically they're a line, and it goes from 20 to, is that 20? I
I
can't.
think it's 200. I think it's only showing from 200 up to 20 kilohertz. It's a little bit fuzzy, but I'm pretty.
No, that's not
No,
true. That is
is it
definitely
at
not
20
true.
hertz?
It's
Okay, it's all the
definitely
way down the
20
base.
because there's not enough. There's 4 characters, and 2 of them are H and a
Oh,
Z.
okay, there we
So
go.
there's
It's a little fuzzy on my screen, so.
it's unclear how far up they're showing though, because it looks like 20 kilohertz,
It sure
but it
looks like it. Yeah.
looks like it's the full frequency range, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's got a graph for the left speaker, a graph for the front right speaker, and what this does is, and then you see like hills on top, and then some uh, some, I don't know, valleys below that are blue. And what these do basically is telling you what it did to the signal. So
Yeah.
if it's above the line, it has boosted the signal during those frequencies because those are the frequencies that needed it. And if it's below the line, then it has cut those frequencies because
Mhm.
they were already too loud in your room to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. If you were to use that copy curve function into the graphic EQ, you could then adjust some of these. Now, the graphic EQ is quite limited. There's only certain frequencies that you can select, and then you can move up or down. And I believe the Q, which is the width of how many frequencies around that center frequency are also affected. I believe that's fixed. There doesn't appear, it's not a parametric EQ where you can change the width, the Q of how wide you're changing, but you can select a certain number of frequencies along that line and then boost or cut manually. So what you would basically get is something that looks very similar to these graphs that are shown in the check settings. And then you could manually adjust those if you wanted to with the copy curve function. So that's what the graph is showing you. It's showing you what Denon has done to the EQ. Based on the measurements it took of your speakers, it's saying, hey, we boosted these parts of the frequency ranges up and we cut these parts of the frequency range down to try and get you back to something that's quite close to a linear response. Now, the one other thing is that in his version, there's been several names, but usually Odyssey gives you two curves that you can choose from, two target curves. One that's sometimes just called Odyssey, and then the other one is called Odyssey Flat. Sometimes that Odyssey one is called Movie, and the
Yeah.
flat one is called Music, and sometimes the Odyssey one is called Reference, and the other one is called Flat. So in his case, they've labeled it reference and flat. He's in the reference mode, and the reference mode essentially keeps everything, it targets everything to be flat up to about 4 kilohertz, and then it has a very gradual roll off of the high frequencies, which is meant to mimic more what you would hear in a movie theater or in a dubbing stage for movies. And so over on Odyssey, they have Odyssey's own website to have their Ask Odyssey Q&A section where Chris Kyriakakis answers questions right there on the page. And he's like, if you're in a very small room where you're sitting very close to the speakers, you probably want to use flat. If you're in a very well padded room, you probably want to use flat. If you're listening to music, you probably want to use flat. So it's basically only if you're in a fairly large, fairly reflective home theater and you're listening to movies that you actually want to use the Odyssey reference slash movie curve. So you can manually switch between those. So this is showing the results of the reference curve.
Right.
And it's showing what it's done to EQ to the reference target curve.
And you'll notice
That's
it's
what it
doing a
means.
lot, like with your front, left, and right
Mm-hmm.
speakers. Like he tells us, he shows us later that he set all his speakers to small, which is what
Yep.
we would do. So any of this stuff that's doing below 80 hertz, just ignore it. It's not, it
Yeah.
isn't really doing anything because you're not playing it much below 80 hertz. It's starting to roll off. It's playing something, but it's starting to roll off, which also tells me that Denon initially thought that your receiver initially thought that these speakers were large,
Probably. Yeah.
and
Which
they're
is common.
EQ'd them, you know, that because of that. Now, when you go over to your to these other settings, like okay, this is the one I just clicked on, the one that's everything's set to small.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the distances looks like everything's pretty well, looks fine there. I
Yep.
mean, I'm sure that's fine.
It's probably accurate because it almost always is.
The only thing that really is concerning is that your crossovers are set so ridiculously low for the most part. You've got 40 hertz crossovers set for your fronts and your center,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't care what your speakers are, do not cross them over at 40 hertz. Don't. You need to switch that to 80. The surrounds and the surround backs are crossed over to the 100. Uh, I'm imagining that's because they're matched speakers and they're rolling off
Mm-hmm.
right about there, which is fine. You can leave that. And the
Yep.
top middles are crossed over at 60. You can scratch that and put that to 80 as well. So
Yep.
yeah, that's about it. That's about the only thing I would
That.
change on your settings.
Yeah. That covers it.
And I would ignore the rest of the I'll just don't even look at those other graphs. It's just gonna drive you crazy. Seriously.
No, but I mean, wanting to know what the heck they are, that's fair enough.
No,
So, because they're
no,
there.
I
So.
understand, but people remember Infinite Gary when he got into looking at settings and what that rabbit hole led to. He had to call his installer back out. So I'm just letting you know, at some point you're going to get so far deep into this thing that you're going to say, I'm not sure what had happened, but now this is happening, and we're going to say factory reset, start over, and you're going
Hmm.
to be displeased. So yeah, it's fine. Just change those crossovers, and you'll be fine. All right. I don't live in the McMansion. Chris is got some. He's come to this realization after listening to us that he needed to move his surrounds forward. He's now decided that he might as well upgrade to new surround speakers while he's at it.
That's
I like
what
the
he
way this.
really wanted to do.
I
This is
like the
just a
way this
great
man
excuse.
thinks.
I know.
I have to move them, so I might as well buy all new ones. I wish it worked that way for cars. Like, oh man, I have to drive to the store. Time to buy another Maserati. Uh, this will leave him with a pair of unused speakers. They will eventually be used as Atmos speakers, but for now, he'd like to use them as front heights.
Hmm.
Fine. His LCR speakers are powered by an external Emotiva amp, leaving the front 3 amps in his Onkyo TX NR1010 unused. Is there some way to reassign those channels as front
Hmm.
heights?
No.
That
I'm
is
afraid the
never.
yeah.
It's almost never the case that
Yeah,
I can
the
think.
the 1010 has the exact same capabilities as the Onkyo 818 from the same year. It added a few little things, but as far as what it can do with the speakers, it's the same. It has 7 amps built in. It has the ability to run 9 speakers. So if you add at least a 2-channel external amp, you can run 9 speakers, which can be either front wides or front heights. But as far as what it can power itself, the 5 main channels are always locked. The internal amps for the 5 main channels are always locked, and then you can choose whether the remaining 2 amp channels power your surround backs, your front heights, your front wides, or a zone 2. So that's the only assignable pair of
It's
amps. So yeah, if you're
really,
sticking with
really
7.1 and then wanting to add the heights, you can't flip the internal assignment to
It's
do that.
yeah, it's really rare to be able to reassign those front 3 speakers,
Yeah.
or even your surrounds for that matter. The surrounds are usually pretty well set too.
The new like 9 and 11 channel Atmos receivers, the Denon and Marantzas do allow you because they let you say, I want my fronts and my top middles powered by my external amp. And then I want to use the internal amps for the remaining ones. So it's kind of cool. They're becoming more flexible. But in this case, with the Onkyo 1010, cannot be done. You would have to add at least another 2-channel amp, which you certainly can do. You can keep your 7.1, and then you can add an external 2-channel amp to power the front heights.
He does have an external amp. He has a 3-channel
Right.
Emotiva amp, but he's using that to power his front 3 speakers, and he's not going to take those. He's not going to put those back on the Onkyo because
Yeah.
his Emotiva amp quote brought those speakers to life, end quote. And as a reminder for those of you that are rolling your eyes, he actually has really low impedance M&K speakers, and he's in a massive
Yeah.
mansion. He's in the McMansion, so he's got to fill that entire McMansion full of. He was the tsunami guy. He was the
That's
subwoofer
right.
tsunami. So
So
yes,
yeah, the key to realize here is yes, amplifiers can make a difference in the right setting, which is that you have exceeded the capabilities of the previous amp, and now you have one that is more capable. And then yes, that absolutely can make a difference.
yeah.
Then there's no question the Emotive amp has more available watts to it and is better prepared to handle low impedance loads than the amps built into the AV receivers. So it's not like he
So
wasn't
your
getting sound
options
before.
here are fairly clear, Chris.
Yes.
You're already buying new speakers, so while you're there, you can either buy another amp
Right.
for these front height speakers,
Hmm.
and I think a better expenditure of money would be to just go ahead and upgrade to Atmos right now. Get a new receiver. Just do that.
Right. Yeah,
Rob's probably
actually,
not
yeah.
going
If you
to
went with
tell
one of
you
the
that.
11s or the 9s, then you can say, "Hey, my front speakers are the ones that are external now." So,
There you go. He also wanted to mention that he kept his pair of SVS PC12 Plus subwoofers on the 2 side walls of his theater, but he has now added his old M&K sub back into the front corner.
mhm.
After playing mini bass sweeps and adjusting settings over half a day, he managed to retain the uniform bass across his 4 seats, but enhance the tactile, hit you in the chest feeling. The M&K sub's volume dial is actually set very low, and outside of the seats, the bass actually seems a lot quieter. So is he doing any harm? Or has he just lucked out by having his seats right where this 3 subwoofer setup creates a peak right in that hit you in the chest frequency range?
Sure seems like it.
It does seem that way. Are you doing anything wrong? No.
Nope.
If it sounds okay, then it sounds okay. Who are we to complain?
No,
The
I mean
reason
we we talked about adding a mid bass module as
Right.
one potential way of doing it. That's essentially what you've done. You've altered the placement of what we originally said, which was normally you kind of just put it right behind your seats. You've altered the placement, but you've essentially created the same thing, which
Yeah.
is a three subwoofer system. One of them basically being used as a mid bass module. So
A mid
that's
bass
fine.
module basically plays like the higher bass stuff. So from
Yeah,
80 down to like
50 or 40.
50 or
Yeah.
40. So the M and K, I don't remember what its frequency response was, but I imagine it probably rolled off around 30 anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So or even higher. So you basically made that.
Mm-hmm.
As long as there's not any distortion to the super low stuff, which is what I'd be
Right.
worried about, and it's not messing up anything else as far as the how even things sound across those four seats, then you're fine. Who
Yeah.
cares?
Yeah. I mean,
The
the
reason
key
we
to
don't
this.
the
Sorry.
reason
Go
we
ahead.
don't suggest three subwoofers is because it's really hard to get it right, and it
Mm,
takes you like it took you half a day, and you we
exactly.
think got lucky. And plus, you've got the rest of your mansion, your McMansion, to suck up the bass that would be bouncing around that room, right? So
Yeah.
most people don't have that. And when they put that thing in that front corner, it just throws everything out of whack.
Yeah.
That's why you want those four subwoofers so that you can balance that out. You're in a very unique situation, so you have lucked out quite a bit.
Yeah, the key to this is that he didn't just plunk down a
Right.
third sub, plug it in, and call it a day. He spent a lot of time playing bass sweeps, adjusting the phase, adjusting the volume until he got the results he wanted. Yes, that can work. That's exactly what we're talking about. Even if it's a two subwoofer setup, but you can't do ideal placement across the room from another, just for whatever reasons, you have to put them both up at the front of the room. Well, you can make it work. You can sort of brute force your way into it as long as you can adjust the phase and relative volumes and distances and delays and all of that. But it's a heck of a lot of trial and error, and it just takes a lot of time, and it's going to be a lot of bass sweeps on repeat while you're doing it. But that's what Chris did. He went through that process, he took the time, and he got great results. So that I'm totally good on it. Nothing done wrong there, Chris, and you're happy with the results. So that's, of course, the main thing.
That being said, you still should stack a couple of subwoofers behind you. I want like a wall of power sound audio behind you until the windows in your McMansion flex. Would like there to be that to be happening. Brian, first, would there be an audible difference if you were to use an Outlaw Model 5000 amp rated at 120 watts per channel, or the built-in amps in the Marantz SR5010 receiver, which are rated at 100 watts per channel, to drive an Ascend Acoustics Sierra 1 surround setup?
He
Uh,
mentions his room size in the next one, which is 13 feet wide by 16 feet long by 8 feet high.
no is the answer to that question.
That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
this is not a large room. You are not sitting far away, and the Sierra ones
Or
are
8 ohms.
very easy to drive.
Yeah, they're 8 ohms,
Yeah.
and they're like 86 or 87 dB sensitive, which isn't great, but it's fine. It's not super
No, I mean they
inefficient.
have they don't dip low in impedance. They have very mild phase angles on them, so everything about electrical phase angles, that is, so everything about them is easy to drive. And given that your room size and that you're not sitting far away, I mean, can I say there's zero chance you would hear any difference ever? Well, maybe not. Fine, whatever. There could conceivably be something audible, but it's not going to be like this. I plugged in my Model 5000 and it changed the way my system sound. Like, no,
You would not be
it's
saying it brought them to life, and if you did, you
no.
would be disingenuous and
This
lying
is
either to
almost
us
the
or to
opposite
yourself.
situation of Chris.
Yes. Second, he just got rid of his old 200-watt Pinnacle 12-inch ported sub, which he has always hated.
Hmm.
Oh, it's sad. It's sad. I'm glad you dumped her, but I'm sad. It's like getting out of a bad relationship. I understand. I understand that joy, that feeling of freedom when you realize you never have to see that person again. It's a good feeling. I'm there for you, dude. All right. His hate. I'm sorry. This whole thing makes me think of Yoda, by the way. This whole part makes me think of Yoda. His hate is driving him to consider such subs as the HSU ULS 15 Mark II, the Rhythmic F12, and the Power Sound Audio S1500. Is his hate driving him to higher price subs that would be overboard in his 13 by 16 by 8 foot room when the SVS SB1000 would just be fine? Hate leads to large subwoofers. If hate led to large subwoofers, I would literally be living inside of a subwoofer. I would be That's my house would. It would look like that speaker in Back to the Future. It would look like that. My whole house. Um,
Now, I
yeah,
want
dude.
to say, out of the three that he mentioned, one of these things is not like the others, which I don't know if this might have been a typo. He might have said the F15 from Rhythmic. That might have been the case, but it says F12 in our write up. So, I mean, the F12 would actually be perfectly good for your room size. It's still more than you really technically need, but it wouldn't be out of place at all to use the F12 in that size of room. But the other two, the ULS 15 and the Power Sound Audio S15, those are both considerably larger, more powerful subs, which you don't need their output capability in this room size. Now, does that mean they'll sound bad or overblown in this room? No, the volume dial will be a bit lower on them. That's all. If those are the subs you want, they're fine, but you don't need them in terms of output capability. That's true. The F12 would actually be a great choice in here.
Yeah. So you really the reason to get the bigger sub in the smaller room is for the lower output. The ability
Yeah.
to get dip down lower in the frequency response range. So really, what you need to do is figure out where do you want to be there, as far as price and everything else, and you realize that you still are going to want to have two, so you're going to
Mm-hmm.
buy two other things.
Yep.
So you know, that's going to be part of it as well. So if it's the Rhythmic F12 or or one of the SVS subs,
Mm-hmm.
you got to think about
Yeah, like
size, about price.
the
Uh,
SB 2000 would certainly play in the same ballpark as the F12.
right.
So the 2000 would be perfectly fine in this size of room. More than you need, but yeah.
Again, what you need. Uh, so that's what, yeah. So, you don't get yourself this massive sub thinking that that's going to be, it's somehow going to make it better than the Pinnacle. You know,
Yeah.
what's going to make it better than Pinnacle is that every single one of these subs that you listed is a good sub. That's what's going to make it better.
Yeah,
None of
I'm
these are going to be bad
noticing,
choices.
I'm inferring something here, but I'm noticing that everything he's listed as a sealed
Yeah.
subwoofer.
Yeah.
And
So he would.
previously had this 12-inch port, and I think he might be making the assumption that one of the reasons the old Pinnacle sounded bad is because it was ported, and that being sealed, these will all sound tighter and cleaner and crisper. No, the Pinnacle sounded bad because it's not a great sub, full stop. It's if it were sealed, it wouldn't even play as low as it did, but it still would sound crappy because it's kind of a crappy, flimsy little box with a kind of crappy little flimsy driver with a not great amplifier powering the whole thing. That's why it didn't sound great
Yeah.
and you always hated it. It's not that it had a port. So, for example, if you were to get a PB1000 from SVS, it would completely handle your room size and it would still sound so much better than that old Pinnacle, even though, yes, the PB1000 is ported. It's not the port to
The
blame.
port is not the problem. Okay. The port is a problem in the bad sub, as is the rest of the sub. That's the problem in the bad sub. When you have port noise or chuffing, or you got flabby crappy bass, it's because it's a bad sub. It's not because they used aluminum drivers. And that's
Yeah.
what I hear all the time, from people, reviewers, that are saying, oh, this sounds tinny to me, or the I've never really liked, or I've never heard a aluminum tweeter that I've liked, or titanium tweeter I've liked, because they've always sounded harsh. Shut up, dude. That's just not possible. It's not possible that the material itself is what makes this, it somehow colors the sound. It's just not possible. So stop it. And this is the same deal. Don't hate on the sub because it's a port. If you want small, well then
Right.
we're okay there.
Oh,
But
yeah.
don't hate on it because it's port. And if you want small, you want small footprint. Don't forget about the cylinders, which are
That's
ported.
right. Yeah, I mean, he mentioned the SB1000, and I mean, the SB1000 would probably be fine in this room size. However, the SB1000 doesn't dig way down into the 20 hertz.
Right.
It does have its limits because it is such a small sub. So if you're thinking one of the things you want to do is really dig down right to 20 hertz, I would consider something a little bit more capable than the SB1000. But like I say, the PB1000, which costs exactly the same, would totally get you there in this room size. So you don't have to spend $900 for the sub. You could spend 500, and it does not have to be sealed. So,
Yeah.
yep,
All right. So really good speakers like the Pioneer Andrew Jones speakers, and headphones. Okay. Anyways,
just and headphones.
and headphones in general are relatively inexpensive, and yet we seem to be living in a time where people, especially young people, are totally indifferent about audio quality. iPod earbuds, and speakers built into flat panel TVs,
And
etc.
Vidity only giving us lossy audio.
Yeah, I don't
I
know if
shake my
that's
fist at you, Vidity,
exactly
right
the same
now.
thing as iPod earbuds, but go on
It's
with that
not,
software.
but I still shake my fist at them.
Dude, such first world problems here. Is it just that people don't know it doesn't take much money to get great sound? Is there anything that can be done? You mean anything more than we're doing right now with this podcast? Uh, honestly, dude, th-
This is not a new phenomenon.
certainly is not. And not only that, it's not a new like this is the conversation that's going on in every circle of people who are interested in a thing. Why is it that people play with such terrible golf clubs when all they have to do is go and buy these over here? If they only knew, how can we get them to know? Well, you have to
Hmm.
tell them to start with. But
Why do
second of
people
all,
drink such terrible coffee when these amazing coffees are available? Why do people drink Budweiser when there's all these craft microbrews that are available? Like, yeah, that's.
it's because they do, because they've only got so much brain power to care about stuff. And they care about the stuff they care about. And it just so happens to be not stuff you care about. Does that make them bad people? Yes, it does, frankly, because audio is really important and they are wasting their lives worrying about craft beer. I am sorry, I love beer. But after a while, you're just like, okay, just can I just have a beer and not have to talk about like where you got the stupid hops from? Because I really don't care. I would very much like to be drunk right now, and you are slowing this process down, sir. So, you know, the same thing goes for coffee and just about anything else. We all care about what we care about, and they need to and they're only going to care about the stuff they care about,
Hmm.
and that's fine. uh that's why I am perfectly fine with us talking about sound bars and talking about
Hmm.
inexpensive speaker offerings and stuff, because people literally do not want to think about it. They're like, I just want to turn it on. Like, I understand you just want to turn it on, but if you just give me 5 minutes, like, do you want to talk about coffee? No, I don't want to talk about coffee. Let's talk about audio.
No, I think the distressing side to me, because I mean, the people who don't care, they don't care. So okay, they're happy. They're going on about their lives with their Apple earbuds, and they're perfectly fine with it. The distressing part to me is when someone does care a little bit, but they're not like super into it. They haven't researched it, and so the first places they go for speakers are Bose, and the first place they go for headphones are Beats. That to me is the more distressing part, because those are not cheap things to buy. They're marketed as being
Right.
very trendy and being great, and then people are not getting their money's worth. That's the side that's distressing to me, because nobody's buying a Bose surround sound system or Beats headphones if they care not at all. They're buying those if they care a little bit, but they don't have the knowledge to know they're not getting their money's worth. So that's where obviously doing this podcast is part of that. And I mean, I had a friend at work who's, he came, he's like, I want to get a surround sound system. I have this one I've used from like 20 years ago. He's like, I'm thinking about this Bose one. I'm like, no, here, let's go to Best Buy. Let's get you the Energy Take Classic speakers and an entry level Denon receiver. Got those, set it up. He's like completely blown away. And he's like, these sound so much better than the Bose that I listen to. I'm like, yes. And they cost half as much as well. So, no downside. And so that's great. I mean, absolutely right. There are these products that do not cost an arm and a leg that sound really good. And so we want to let people know about them, but they have to care a little bit first. And as long as they care enough to ask even a tiny bit of someone who isn't like a Best Buy salesman, then they're there. At least they
Yeah.
exist. That's the
That's
happy
only,
side.
the thing is it gets very intimidating. Audio in
Yeah.
particular
Yeah.
becomes very intimidating because of all of the stuff that's out there, and it's so much
Well, look at all
to
these young people who are
process.
being like forced into thinking that vinyl is the second coming. So, you
They
know.
get what they deserve, because if they can't hear that stuff sounds like crap, then they're clearly tin ears that deserve what they're just
Hmm.
they have beards. They're hipsters. They want to like things that people don't like. And that's fine. Go like things that people don't like, specifically vinyl, because then I'll be able to identify you from a distance and go, oh, look, there's a vinyl lover. Let's
That's
walk
what I.
to the other side of
That's
the
what I
other side
said.
of the
That's
street.
why I like Beats. I can identify the people from very far away that I have no need to talk to.
Yeah, I was irritated when every time I see Age of Ultron and he's wearing Beats headphones, I just
Yeah.
like, really? You're Tony Stark or whoever. I think it was Tony Stark. Oh, was it Captain America? One of them. No, it was Bruce Banner. I think was wearing them on the plane right after the first thing. I was like, seriously, you should be hulking out right now. Right now, you should be hulking out because you're listening to that crap. All right. Lastly, he asked what happened to Andrew Gash because he hasn't appeared in the Audioholics videos lately. Gene contracts for those things, and Gene has decided not to use Andrew anymore. That's it. That's the end of it. Gene decided to make his own video, so now you get Gene and Hugo instead of Andrew. So
Such is the way of being a freelance worker.
that's right. And honestly, Andrew is very busy as well, and he
Hmm.
was always really busy, and it was always hard to schedule with him, anyways. So I'm sure, and I know that Andrew had a good time doing it because he told me so. But you know, things change.
Hey, yeah.
Jonathan has some questions about upscaling content on his UHD Vizio TV.
Yep. He got one of the M series.
Are there any objective standards or measurements that can be used for reviewing video upscaling? Most of the reviews he's read seem to be opinion based, i.e., it looked better when using the upscaling in this device than that device. So why don't manufacturers or reviewers tell us what upscaling chips are being used? Everything else in the video is measurement based. Is upscaling an exception?
They
Uh,
often do actually list what upscaling chip is being used somewhere. I mean, it's usually buried way
yeah,
deep down in the specs, but that is something you can often find out. Not always, but often.
and we do. I don't know that there's a 4K test disc out yet.
That's kind of what's missing. Yeah.
But we've been testing for artifacts and in scaling issues when we've been doing HDTV reviews this whole
Hmm.
time. uh so we're going to see that again once
Yeah.
somebody comes out with a disc, but frankly the TVs are just getting here. The
Yeah,
discs are going away.
the issue is that we don't have a 4K resolution disc player yet. That's coming. We know
Oh,
Ultra
that's
HD
true as well.
Blu-ray
Yeah, I
disc
didn't
is
think about that.
coming, but we haven't had the disc yet. So anybody who's made test patterns have had to put it onto like a USB stick or play it off a computer. And then there's the question of, well, is there something in that signal path that's perhaps not exactly the way it should be? So what's lacking right now is we don't really have the test patterns, the test pattern generator or the Ultra HD Blu-ray disc player to allow us to do it objectively yet. But we did have, we had the HQV test disc, we had the Spears and Munsell test discs. Those things existed for HD TV and they will again. So, when you're looking right now and they're saying, well, this video upscaler in this particular TV seems to, in this 4K TV, looks better than the one in this other 4K TV. It's like, yeah, they do kind of have to do that subjectively right now because the only content is coming from the built-in apps. And then you're like, well, is that because of my bandwidth limitation? Is that because of the way the app was implemented in this TV versus this one? Or is it because of the video upscaler? Well, we can't really be sure until we
Yeah,
have the test patterns. So that's what's going on there
yeah, we'll
at
see.
this moment. Yeah. It'll come.
Uh, is there a case to be made for multiple upscaling? For example, a 480i source might be upscaled by the cable box to 1080i, then upscaled by the receiver to 1080p, then upscaled by the display to 4K. Could this be a good thing by not asking any one device to do too much processing, or will just increase the possibility of errors? I'll take B for 200, Alex, because yeah, generally speaking, you want to have your best upscaler do all of it, wherever that might be. Right now, it's in your TV because that's the only place it exists. But if you can get it to your TV in 1080p, then it's not having to do very much.
Hmm.
If you're sending it to it in 480i, it's doing a lot.
Yeah.
So if your receiver, which is if you've got the
Yeah.
Denon,
He's got the X2200 is what he has.
if your receiver has decent upscaling, which it probably does,
Hmm.
it is certainly better than your stupid cable box. That's for sure.
Now,
It's
the X2200 can upscale all the way to 4K, but at a max of 30 frames a second. It won't go up to 60 frames a second in its
yeah.
upscaler.
So I would send it out 1080p,
Hmm.
and then I would send it native from the cable box. There's
Yep.
usually a setting, set it native from the cable box to the Denon, have the Denon upscale to 1080p, and then have the display do the rest.
Yeah, I mean, he's saying, could there be a case made for it? And yes, there could. Because, for example, there's like the Marvell QDO, which is what
Yeah,
a lot of them are using right now to scale from 1080p to 4K. And it does that really well. But it's not a terrific deinterlacer. It's not fantastic at taking 480i or 1080i and turning that into progressive. So, for example, in like the Oppo, they have two separate chips. one that does deinterlacing and upscaling to 1080p, and then a second chip that takes that and upscales it to 4K,
Right.
because the two of them do better at their specific tasks than either one of them does going the entire signal wave from, let's say, 40i all the way up to 4K. So yeah, a case can be made, but unless you
Not for
know,
long.
yeah, unless you know which one, and yeah, this it's a
When
little
they
bit tricky, but yeah, I mean, usually your cable box is the crappiest one at doing anything. So, like Tom says, get it native out of there, and then let something
whenever the
else do the
signal
rest.
came into the cable box, have it send it out
Yeah,
if you can.
but yeah, letting your TV scale from 1080p to 4K, that it can do. So, if you don't have any 4K native sources, which I don't think you do, uh, get everything into the TV in 1080p form if you can, because from there to 4K, it'll do a great job.
Right. So can a scaler, which is this, we already answered this question.
Yes,
Can
yeah.
a scaler, which is great upscaling, say 1080 or 1080p to 4K, be lousy at upscaling 480 to 720p or 4K? And does the progressive versus interlace matter here? Yes, we
Yeah.
just said
Yeah,
that.
deinterlacing is different from scaling. So
Yes,
some are
scaling is just
really good
yeah,
deinterlacers.
scaling is just increasing the size, basically the
Yeah.
number of pixels that are being used, and the deinterlacing is a completely different thing, which has to do with the 3 2 pull down and all that fun jazz. And lastly, he asks, this device is like the Lumigen Radiance. They're pretty expensive. So what can they do that the built-in processors in the devices can't? Should they be considered buying some other, preferably less expensive, external video processor? Should they even worry about any of this? Um, I wouldn't worry about it right now because honestly, most of if you have one decent device in your signal chain, it can probably deinterlace pretty well and scale to 1080p. And then, as we said, at that point, you can send it out. Like, if you're really worried about it, then buy an Oppo and have everything go through the stupid
Exactly.
Oppo, because the
Yep.
Oppo's got great deinterlacing and scaling.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it has that pass through thing. So you could do that. I mean, if you're really worried about it, and that's like what, $500? I mean, for one of
500
those things.
bucks. Yep. For the
So
103. Yeah, it's an
yeah,
interesting connection, because what you would do is you would still plug all your other sources into your AV receiver, and then you would have the output from your AV receiver, which would normally go to your TV. That's now going to go into the input of the Oppo. And then the Oppo has two HDMI outputs. HDMI 1 out is going to go to your TV, and your Oppo is always going to have to be powered on no matter what you're watching, because it's now acting as your video processor. But HDMI 2 is going to go back into the AV receiver carrying only audio. That's what's the signal path is going to be in there. So yeah, it's a
and
little
this
bit
is why people
interesting.
don't get this is it. This
That's
is
right.
why right here, because they ask a question like this. We're like, oh yeah, it's easy. Just put an Oppo in between your receiver,
Uh-huh.
and they're like, what?
It does. But yeah,
uh,
what the Lumigen can do that other, like even like the Oppo can't do. First of all, some of the really rare cadences, like if it's something that came from Europe and they first started by doing a 3-2 pull down, and then they did reverse telecine, and then they turned it into 50 hertz, and then they interlaced it again, and then they dropped a bunch of frames, and then they sped it back up and then slowed it back. Like there's crazy things that have been
if
done to
somebody
video out there
literally
sometime.
hand cranked that bad boy,
Yeah.
right? When they filmed it, if you've got a film like that and you're worried about the cadence being off and it looking weird, well, then you might need a little bit Lumigen
Yeah,
there.
so those ones can do like crazy analysis of, like, a full second worth of frames, and do a crazy amount of processing that a normal video processor, and certainly the scaler built into your TV, won't be doing. There's that side of things. So they're really esoteric stuff. But the major one that it does is that it controls color. It allows you to calibrate the color coming out of it very, very granularly using 3D lookup tables. So not only is it adjusting the coordinates within the regular CIE diagram of all the colors we can see, it can also change the luminance levels. So it can do an on the fly adjustment to your gamma, and it can on the fly adjust your grayscale and all that kind of stuff. It gets really granular. So when your TV doesn't have the capability of being perfectly calibrated with its own controls, even in the service menu, then you can use something like Lumigen Radiance to sit in between all of your sources and your display to do that kind of stuff. So it gets really into the nitty gritty. That don't worry about it. I mean,
Yeah,
if you are the person who's going to buy it anyway, you're not asking us. You already know that's what you need, and you just went and bought it. If you're a normal person, it
needs
is
in air
way
quotes, by the
beyond what you
way.
need.
Just in case you were wondering, need was definitely in air quotes at that
Yeah,
point
yeah.
because you did not need this. You wanted it, and you wanted to know that you had absolutely perfect color and perfect everything, and that's what you did. So, are you getting messages? Because I
I was
hear
getting
that
some.
bad boy
Oh, I'm sorry that came through, eh?
that came through. Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
All right. Is that all of it? Yeah.
That's it for him.
All right, Tim. He was a guy who's having HDMI audio, lossless audio problems with his Oppo, and he's still having problems. He tried everything we said. He set the Oppo HDMI output to bitstream with secondary audio off. He set the receiver to HDMI audio, the receiver HDMI audio to auto decode. Then when a Blu-ray loads during trailers on the disc, the receiver indicates it's getting a Dolby Digital input and he can hear audio. However, when he's on the main menu screen of the disc, or if he plays a movie, there is no audio output. Pressing the info button on the receiver remote yields a message that the audio input signal is unknown. If he changes
Yeah.
the disc audio setting to one of the lossy audio formats on the disc, then the audio is output. It's just when he's selecting True HD or DTSMA that the audio goes away. He's also tried setting the Oppo to LPCM output, but the same unknown issue
Now
occurs.
that is really
This
weird.
is not right, dude. This should not. This should
Yeah.
have worked. You should have. This should have worked.
Yeah.
You
So
need to call
I
Oppo.
I emailed him back because I mean there are a few final things he could try, but something is crazy here. So first of all, on the Oppo side, this is an older model, but it still had the two HDMI outputs. Um, on HDMI 1, there is the option to set it to video only mode where it doesn't send audio back out. That's when you're doing the thing of the video is just going through the TV and then you're using the second HDMI
Right.
connection to send audio back to the receiver. So obviously double check that that is set to no. It's worded weirdly because it's video only mode, no, right? Which means video and audio. So
Right.
it's a little bit weird to have a double negative in there. But anyway, obviously make sure that try setting the primary output to HDMI 2 instead of HDMI 1, and then use the HDMI 2 output just in case there's some hardware thing going on inside the Oppo and it's actually still working, but HDMI 1 is buggered up for some reason. I don't know. I mean, these are, I'm getting into like crazy troubleshooting things because
Like
this should work.
your thing got hit by lightning or something sort of
Yeah.
troubleshooting.
So that's on that side. On the Denon side, honestly, the thing to do here is factory reset it. The instructions for how to do that are in the manual. In this case, with the particular Denon that he has, you hold down two buttons on the front display and then press power and wait for the front panel to start blinking, and then it will reset itself back to factory fresh. Make sure you've downloaded all the latest firmware for both of them. And then the only other thing I can suggest is try a different HDMI cable because there are 19 pairs of teeny tiny little wires in an HDMI cable, only a couple of which carry audio signals. Stranger things have happened than a defective HDMI cable, and it's certainly the cheapest and easiest one to swap out for another one, just because I'm grasping at straw here is yes, but getting an unknown, especially when you're sending PCM audio. I mean, PCM audio in 7.1 has been supported since HDMI 1.0, right? So the very first HDMI devices and the very first HDMI cables could pass along 7.1 PCM. For that to show up as unknown on the Denon, something has gone horribly wrong in somewhere. That is just unfathomable. So
Something's
yeah,
wrong. I would also consider calling both Denon and
exactly. Yeah, we're at that point now because yeah, that ain't right. It should not say unknown, not for PCM for sure. That's bizarre.
hmm, I'm gonna
Yeah.
call that Oppo dude. See if I can't get him in on
I mean,
that.
I've heard of there being some issues with Dolby True HD with some of the older Oppo
Yeah,
players.
but
There's
he's
never
looking at that was Age of Ultron. That
Oh
was
no,
on
that was
that was
the
on the screen.
yeah, exactly. No, it was the BDP 83 way back when.
Oh,
If
you're
you
talking about different players. Yeah.
yeah, if you had secondary audio, then sometimes Dolby True HD would screw up, and like there were some little things with that. but that's I don't recall that being the case with the 93, and it's never been the case with DTS HD Master Audio. It has absolutely never been the case with PCM output. So yeah, something's gone awry here. If you have another device, even if it's a PlayStation 3 or an Xbox, oh no, 360 wouldn't do, but an Xbox One would. I mean, some other device that's capable of sending out lossless audio, even if it's just in multi-channel PCM format, just to see if your Denon is capable of taking at least 5.1 or
Borrow
7.1
a friend,
PCM.
dude. Or you know what? Go to Best Buy and buy one, and then bring it back.
And then return it, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
because something is really messed
You
up here.
have
So
to, we have to be able to identify which device is the issue here.
yeah,
And the
yeah,
only way to do that is to either take your device, either your Oppo someplace else, and try it with their receiver where they know it works, or you to get a different player in there to do it. I would definitely
yeah.
try switching out the HDMI cable. I would do that first.
Oh
I would
yeah,
do that
yeah.
before I
I mean,
factory reset anything.
you almost certainly have another one. I mean, you had one that was going from your den into the TV, so we know you've got at least one other HDMI
Right.
cable that you could try. All
So
we need is to see if the audio can work.
yeah,
So,
you need it. I would try that first, but
oh yeah,
something's weird, dude. Something's
yeah,
broken. And
yeah,
I'm not this is not a troubleshooting issue anymore. We're just trying to identify the defective part so we know,
yeah,
who to send you to. Because that certainly shouldn't have been the case.
yeah.
Ever. And it honestly, I think it's the Oppo. I honestly do. Because he's tried it with two receivers now and never
Ah,
gotten it to work. So
okay.
therefore, I really think it was the receiver.
Well,
It's the Oppo.
did he try
But
it with two
we don't know.
receivers?
Yes,
Which
because he had a different receiver and was never able to get it to work, and we were
that
like,
was a
"Well, you
TV. He changed TVs.
oh whatever." Anyhow, it doesn't make any difference. Doesn't matter. You've tried it with two devices.
Yeah,
All right. Anyways, okay. So is this Pieter? Is that what we're going with
I
this
believe
one?
so. Yeah.
Pieter is renovating a house in Belgium
Hmm.
and wants to include a home theater system in the family room. I have a friend that she's Belgian. She lives in Belgium now. She was in Australia and she used to watch my son. Her name is Sophie. Maybe you know her. We'll find out. Anyways, she just had a kid.
That's like when people say, "Oh, you're from Canada. Do you know so and so?" It's
I know.
kind of a big place.
I love doing that because people used to do it to me all the time. Like, oh, you're from California. Do you surf? No. It's a huge damn state. I do not surf. There's
That's not
sharks.
quite the same as do you know this single person?
Oh, I do that all the time. I love doing that. I love whenever I know somebody from someplace. I'm always like, do you know them? Just because it's the most obnoxious question you can possibly ask. All right, his room is 18 by 18 feet 8 inches square. That's fantastic. But
Yeah.
it's open to the dining room and kitchen, which adds another 11 and a half by 29 and a half feet.
Yep.
So basically, when we look at this, the overall space here,
Hmm.
what he has is it looks like there is a maybe sliding glass door on like the right wall.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah,
know if
out
that's
to the patio.
up
Yeah.
to a patio. And then like he's sitting that would be the right wall for him.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's facing this one wall. Then behind him looks like it's some sort of dual
Hmm.
desk setup and some bookshelves. Then to his left, it's open to this long hallway, which is maybe like he said, what did he say it was? It
He
was
says
some
11 and a
11
half
and a
feet
half. So it's
wide,
11
and
and a half
then
feet. So there's a jut in, and
yeah.
behind that there's looks like a bathroom in one space and a staircase in the other with maybe another bathroom. I can't really tell. Anyways, and that's the kitchen dining room area over there. So the left is
Hmm.
completely open. The right has got a nice reflective glass door, which should work out fantastically. Anyhow, so what could be used to temporarily close off the theater area when watching movies, since it's still in the planning phase, because this is a renovation.
Hmm.
Structural changes are possible if necessary. Yeah, you need a wall. That's how you close it off. Okay, a wall with a door. That's what you need. I don't know if that's what you want, but that's what you
Yeah, I
need.
really don't think it's what's wanted here.
Yeah.
Like, okay, as much as I love home theater and as much as I prioritize audio, I do have some interest in interior design, like really basic interior design of, visual things and where your focal points in a room and stuff might be. So I highly doubt that what you want to do is build a full wall closing off the dining room and kitchen from this living room area. One thing you could do though is put in more sliding glass, or even just sort of like a glass partition with a door. I'm not sure how much room you have for which way a glass type door would swing to open. But I
Yeah,
mean, you could acoustically close off the room without visually closing it off with a glass partition
I
there.
don't
That's
see how that's good. I mean, you mean like literally because I don't see how you could do this without having it slide out of the way, which means you would want the whole thing to slide down into that wall, that little half wall there, which isn't quite a half wall. If it was a half wall, it could
Oh no,
work.
not the whole thing. I mean, just like when you go into a big office building and they just have a big glass, you know, door, wall or entryway. Like just literally instead of building a regular wall, just build a glass wall that separates your living room from your dining room. With obviously an entrance of some either
Yeah, but make
sliding
sure you
or
put a
regular
sensor in the
swinging
door so when you
glass door.
walk up to it, it opens automatically, and then you could have a security guard there to
Yeah, I
check
don't know.
people
I
when
don't
you
know if you
come
have
in.
any pets, but be careful with pets because they might be crashing their little heads into
I,
a
I
glass wall.
honestly, dude, I wouldn't even worry about it. Acoustically,
There's
you're not.
that.
You, first of all, acoustically, I don't know that it's a great idea to put another big glass wall in there. Let's start with
I know.
that.
Well, I was gonna say the once you have this thing enclosed in glass, because you'd have glass on the right and glass on the left if you go with that suggestion. Then you might want acoustic panels on stands. Those would be the temporary thing that you could move into and out of place when movies are happening. Because you can certainly do that. You can have your acoustic panels on stands. Because man, that's going to be reflective back and forth between
Yeah,
that
at
left and
least
right
now
wall.
your left wall doesn't exist, so you don't have to worry about
That's
that.
right. Yeah.
Your right wall, you're gonna have to. You could maybe put an acoustic panel on the stand that you could
Or just
pull
some nice
out.
big thick drapes that go over that sliding glass.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad. I'd still get an
Yeah.
acoustic panel, but that's just me. Uh, so what was the question? Uh,
Structural changes, should
yeah,
he make any?
nothing. Don't do anything, dude. Seriously, I don't see how you can do it.
Yeah,
You don't want to put a wall there.
I
Uh,
really
and
don't think so.
there's really no point to putting a partial wall there because
No.
acoustically it's not going to make that much of a difference.
Yeah.
Uh, so his speaker placement, the way his he wants to know about his speaker placement, uh, I can't see the surrounds. Do you can see the surrounds?
Yeah, the surrounds are on those dual desks at the back of the room. They are the same width apart as his front left and right that he's showing. This is all in a diagram, of course, because he hasn't
Yeah.
done the full renovation yet. But he's got his front left and right speakers seemingly very far apart for how far away he's sitting from the TV. So he's got this space, which, like he says, is 18 feet at 8 inches from front to back and from left to right.
And his
It looks
speakers
like
are
he's
basically 18 feet 8 inches
well,
apart.
more not quite. They're more like maybe 12 or 13 feet
No,
apart.
they're more than that, dude. You are not
Ah,
looking at this right.
no,
Oh,
because there's
they
a
are
couple of
barely a
feet,
foot off that wall of either side. So they are 16 feet
maybe
apart.
16 feet apart. Yeah, they're very far apart. I mean, he's in his diagram. He's shown his TV mounted on the wall, and then a large console below it with sort of like bookcases on the left and right or something like that. If there's some way to make that not quite so wide, because I think the idea was he wanted his speakers to be
Outside
wider
of
apart than his total seating area,
yeah,
because he's got this big sectional couch that he's put in there, kind of in
think
the
of those
middle of
three
that space.
seats in the middle there. Those are the
Yeah,
ones you care about. Those people on the
that's right.
outside, they're out of luck.
Yeah.
No one cares about them. That's what you get for sitting for being able to lie down in that one part of the L. That's what
Yeah,
my
something
wife always.
something I mentioned last podcast, which is the idea of you're watching an image on the screen, and the thing that's making sound goes off the left or the right side of the screen. You're going to have this crazy teleporting of sound where say it's an ambulance that's going across the screen, its siren is going, you see it go across the screen, and then suddenly it's teleported way over to the left or the right as it left to the edge of your TV screen.
Right.
That's going to be disconcerting. So
Yeah, so if you can get him to flank your TV a little bit more, he's got a sub in the front right corner and no other sub that I can see.
yeah.
So there's an issue. And if you're gonna get two subs in there, you could put one. Let's see. I'm looking at the wrong picture. Well,
You could
actually, let me finish. Let me finish with the front. The
yeah.
front here. Oh, I'm sorry. The surround. So his surround backs. Our surrounds are like in the surround back position. They are also 16 to 12 to 16 feet apart.
Yeah.
Way too far apart. Way too far back. I think. If it's possible, you could wall mount these
Uh-huh.
above your window door, whatever the thing is on the right. They'll be high. That's fine. You can angle
Mhm.
them down a little bit, and then put one mirrored on the other wall,
Yeah.
which is around that corner right there. And that's what I would do for my surrounds. I would not put them on that back thing back there. I'd put them on the walls on the side.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why he put them back there,
Yeah,
obviously, because he's got this big sliding glass door on the right. So I can see why he put them back there. And it's not the end of the world if they're back there. It's not the ideal for where you would place surround speakers, but it's not horrible. I would get them higher than he shows them.
which
Even if
is
they're staying back there, I would get them up higher because they're just on desks right now, so they're definitely at ear level. Yeah, the other center speaker, which in the diagram, looking at it, it's quite low. It's like inside the console, which is below the TV. If there's any way to get that center speaker on top of that console, still below your TV, but on top of the console, rather than in it and very low, that will help in your center speaker channel placement. So, yeah, everything is some
yeah,
adjustments to what was shown in the diagram.
yeah. And then the subwoofer issue is going to be one that's going to be hard to deal with here, because they kind of want to you kind of want them to be in the dining room. Honestly, how do you feel about
Well,
subs in the dining?
yeah, I mean, if he went sort of, I mean, he could actually put one sub beside his front left speaker
Right.
and then another one directly across of it at the back of the room. If you went diagonally opposite within your theater area, that'll probably work just fine. It might not be ideal in terms of uniformity across all that entire sectional, but it would be better than just one sub, and it would be better than two subs at the front of the room. So yeah,
Yeah.
get a second sub though.
So if you want to keep it in front right and put it back left, that's
Yeah.
fine. I would put
Yep.
back left and front left.
Front left. Yeah.
What I would do.
Yep.
So there you go. What else? All right, he already
TV.
has a 55-inch LG TV, but he's planning to add a drop-down screen and a projector with HDR if possible for movie watching. You got 60 grand? Because if you
Well,
got 60 grand, we can talk.
well, there is the JVCs, which start at 7,000 for the HDR model. So less expensive. It's not genuine 4K. It's a 1080p panel that they're wiggling back and forth to
Yeah,
create pseudo
that.
4K. But it's capable of taking an HDR signal. It's brighter than last year's model, but it's not really HDR. It's HDR compatible, so I'll give it that much. There's the Sony starting at least 10,000. You probably want the $15,000 model again, because again, not actually that much brighter in the $10,000 model, and none of them, the JVC or the Sony's, actually do really expanded color because they're all lamp based. So I have to say, it looks like he's only sitting maybe 9-10 feet away at the most from that front wall because he's got
One would
this.
guess that from looking at it, yeah, that's
Yeah,
what it
his
looks
seats are
like,
kind
about
of
10
centralized.
feet. Yeah,
Do you really? I mean, far be it from me to steer anyone away from a projection setup, but do you really need one? Because if you're 9 feet away, an 80-inch screen would look fantastic. And I mean, normally we'd be saying an 80-inch screen, especially like an HDR one, seems exorbitant and crazy. But if he was considering an HDR projector, it's playing in the same ballpark as far as prices go.
right.
So, yeah, I'd look at maybe one of the Samsung SUHDs in a big size because they make them in like 75 inches.
Anyways, that's not the question.
I know.
Uh, he also wants to add Atmos speakers to his 5.1 CAF system since the budget for the theater will be tight after renovation. Which should he add first? Atmos, because it actually exists in a price that you can get to. Because you don't
There's
have
that.
$60,000 for a decent projector for this thing. So
Not to
yes,
mention, I mean, he's planning on during the renovation pre-wiring the ceiling for the speakers anyway.
might as well
So
just
you're more than halfway there. All you have to do is plop the speakers in. Kef certainly makes some great in-ceiling speakers that are guaranteed to match the Kef speakers you already have. So that's almost like a why not, because you're almost there anyway. You're doing the
yeah.
biggest part of it during the renovation.
This is not the time to buy an HDR projector. All right,
No,
not
no.
this is not it.
It's nice
Two,
that they exist,
2 years
but
from now, let's talk about it.
yeah.
But right now, it's not. So it might be the time to get a big HDR TV,
There's that.
but it's still a heck of a lot cheaper and easier to get these speakers. Plus, you won't have those wires hanging from your ceiling.
Yep.
So there's that.
Yeah.
All right, Nathan has a pair of self-powered speakers and a pair of subs with a mini DSP to act as a crossover and EQ. He wanted to a stereo DAC with the following features: at least 2 digital inputs, with at least one of them being digital coax. The other could be optical or coax, doesn't matter. A remote with the ability to switch between sources and control the volume, which is what remotes normally do. A low price, preferably $100, but no more than 300. And over email, Rob suggested the Emotiva XDA2 Generation 2, which was $299, but is now on closeout sale at a buck 99 or 199. It fit the bill, so he ordered one. But honestly, dude, there was like a ton of these things that you could have ordered.
With
The Emotiva
remotes,
was
are
that
there? With remote
with
controls.
remotes?
That was actually the sticking point
Was it really?
because yeah, over at I know it's your favorite name, but Sheet Audio, SCHIIT Audio. They have their Maxi Modi little 2-part system, which is a couple $100 after you put them together, but doesn't have a remote control. There's a gazillion DACs out there, but not with remote controls. Or if they have remote controls, they don't control the volume because it's just a DAC. And they're
Oh,
assuming you're attaching it to self-powered speakers or a separate amplifier. So this was actually kind of tricky, but the Emotiva did exist. It was kind of the only one I could think of that fit all the parameters. So lucky
now
it
that I'm
went on
thinking
close
about
out
it,
sale.
I didn't really consider the remote being that big of a sticking
Yeah.
point. That inputs and stuff is usually what slows everything down, and most of these things have that.
Yeah, because a ton
Uh,
of DACs these days are just USB DACs. They're really meant to connect to your computer. And maybe they have one or two other inputs, but a lot of them don't have the ability to control volume going out of them
I know there's a
or
mono
switching.
price stack that's like this too, isn't there?
Ah, there might be. I didn't actually look into that.
I think there is. We'd have to look into that.
That
Anyways,
could be.
doesn't matter. And the question has already been answered.
Yes. In any
Martin,
case, yeah. If anyone else is looking for this exact set of parameters, that those Emotiva XDA2 Gen 2s are going away. That's why they're selling them off at this price.
they
I'm sure they're replacing them with something.
because
But
they've sold out of their container of shipment that they
yeah,
ordered.
they're actually a
Uh,
really good headphone amplifier too. So they
yeah.
do that duty as well.
Martin decided to go with the Oppo player rather than Yamaha. He asked if which one we thought, and we both said Yamaha, but he really wanted the Oppo, so he bought it. Yay!
Oh, I will say there was one thing I forgot to mention when we were discussing that $400 Yamaha, which plays DVD audios and SACDs. It does not play downloaded DSD files, but the Oppo does.
They're clearly.
It was worth $100. You're justified, Martin, for those downloaded DSD files.
He's really always wanted the Oppo, anyways, or
Yeah.
an Oppo, not the Oppo. Just a. He wants to be part of the in crowd that has the Oppos. But now he needs to know if he should get the Darby edition or not. He's never seen the effect of the Darby process in person. I have, and I would turn it off.
There you
So,
go.
yeah, get the other one.
I say no for the simple reason that I mean, factually, this type of processing is a form of distortion. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's taking the original signal and changing it. It is no longer one-to-one perfect pixel mapping for what came off the Blu-ray disc and went into the TV. For that reason alone, I'm like, I don't really want it. There are the people who are fans of it. I don't want to take that away. If you really like the way it looks, almost everyone who does like it keeps the setting really low, which makes me question how much they really love it. Because even the Darby people are like, yeah, you should probably never turn it above 25 out of the scale that I think goes to what? The scale goes to 110, 120. It goes above
goes
100.
over 100. What
It goes
scale
over
goes
100.
over 100? Let's just start with that. What scale goes over 100? Who thought that was a good idea? Just make it go to 100.
It is pretty arbitrary.
It goes to 11. Shut up. It stops at 100. Make it stop. Scale everything else. What? Ugh, so stupid.
To me, it's one of those features you'll turn on, look at for a while, and eventually turn off.
Yeah. Or
So,
forget about it and then
Yeah.
do whatever you stuck it with is
So
stuck with it. It's I would not.
I don't hate
Uh,
anyone for liking it, but it's not something I'd recommend spending an extra $100 for.
Anyways, he's planning to buy a pre-pro to go with his Equator Audio D5 speakers. I've never heard of those speakers. And his Epson 5030 UB projector. He was looking at the Marantz AV 7702, but noticed that there's now a 7702 Mark II.
Mm-hmm.
Or the difference is worth it to go with the Mark II. I think it's an extra $200. It's 190.
Yeah.
It's $19.99 for this to the original and the $21.99 for the Mark II. The differences that I could see was that you actually get HDMI 2.0 and HDCP 2.2 and all that for all the 4K
And DTS-X.
there it is, and all the 4K goodness that goes along with that. So
Yeah.
and you tell us, is it worth it? Because
I mean,
clearly what we say is you just gonna do whatever you want anyways. So that's and that is absolutely fine. I am okay with
it
that.
really is. Yeah.
But but that's the difference. Do you need 4K or are you gonna need 4K or have you I mean, is it worth $200 for you to make sure that you're gonna be future proof?
Yeah, like with the gear he has right this second, you don't need any of those features because the
Nope.
5030 UB doesn't need HDCP 2.2 or HDMI 2.0A. It is not high dynamic range. It is not 4K. He doesn't have an immersive audio setup just yet, so he doesn't need DTS-X right this second. But the AV7702 is not upgradable. You cannot upgrade it to do anything more than what it does right now, other than adding Oro 3D decoding for $200. It has that, but you cannot add HDCP 2.2 later to it. You cannot add high dynamic range support in the form of HDMI 2.0A to it later. You cannot add DTS-X to it later. The 7702 Mark II comes with all of those things, so if there's any chance you're going to have any of those in the future, get the Mark II. I will also say, you don't really need to get the preamp version. There is the SR7010 AV receiver, which has identical features other than XLR outputs to the amplifiers. It has 9 amps built into it, so if you don't want to buy 11 amplifiers for a full 7.2.4 system and would prefer to be able to buy 2 channels of amplification, or maybe 4 or something like that.
He doesn't need to buy any. He can just take these self-powered speakers and use those as
Oh yeah,
whatever the
self-powered.
thing is. Yeah.
So, you
Yeah.
know, I don't
The
really see
receiver
the
here.
need for the preamp.
I don't really know why. But the amps in there will corrupt the
But
signal.
the SR7010 costs exactly the same. They are the exact same price.
But
So
you get amps.
you get
And
amps.
no XLR connections.
That's right.
Probably weren't using anyway. Ronald wants to upgrade his 1080p Vizio TV to something 4K with a budget of under $2,000. He was looking at the 55-inch Vizio M55C2. But while at his local Best Buy, I just love
Drum
Best
roll,
Buy
please.
employees. What were we told to sell this week? We were which TV were we told? The Sony? The Sony. Oh,
It's got the
anyways,
highest
while he was
spiff
at
this
the local
week.
Best Buy, he was told that the Sony X850C is the only currently available TV with HDR.
God.
It's only one. That's it. In fact, they have the only model.
There's so much wrong with that statement. So much wrong, but we'll get into that in a second.
He's also read good reviews to the Panasonic TC55CX800, but with no local stores carry it, so you can't compare it in person. Which, frankly, you can't compare it in person, anyways, because they got set to dynamic mode and it all looks like crap. So, really doesn't matter.
Okay, so I've got to come back to this HDR business because HDR, it is the very early days of HDR. It really is. So the Samsung SUHD TVs, they created a whole separate line and gave it the letter S in front of it. They did that because the SUHD TVs are high dynamic range compatible TVs. I would only recommend getting the highest end one, the JS9500 series, because it's the only one that really does HDR properly by having dynamic, full range, full array local dimming, LED backlights. All the other SUHD models that aren't the JS9500 series are edge lit, and all they do is crank the backlight to maximum when they go into HDR mode, which means your black levels just got crappy. So I really only recommend the top level one, but that is definitely an HDR TV. It is the only, if they want to talk about something being the only HDR TV out there right now, those Samsung JS9500s are the only ones that currently work with Vidity, which is, other than Amazon, the only way to get any HDR content right now. The Sony can't connect to Vidity in any way, so there's that. And the Sony only gives you HDR through its own built-in apps, which is only Amazon. It's the only one. It's the only way to get HDR on that Sony. It does not have HDMI 2.0A. You're not even going to be able to connect an Ultra HD Blu-ray player to it and get HDR. It doesn't have the hardware connection to do it. So
I'm sorry, are you suggesting that the Best Buy employee somehow misled a customer? Is that what you are suggesting, sir?
I mean, I realize that almost no one who buys it based on this advice is even going to notice whether they're watching HDR or not, because the Sony has that thing that all HDR TVs have, which is it'll take all the content you already have, none of which is HDR, and apply fake HDR processing to it. It'll do that. So almost everybody who took this advice, they'll probably never even notice. They'll have no idea. Their TV is blazingly bright, so they'll think they're watching HDR because they're watching pseudo HDR. But yes, that is just wrong information on so many fronts.
So, anyways, his actual question is, which of these would we buy, or would we buy something else entirely? Well, we would, if you want HDR, we would buy the Samsung J one that he was talking.
But you can't get it for $2,000. That's
yeah, that ain't happening. So
you could actually get one of the lower models, like the JS 9000 series, the JS 8500 series. It's not like they're bad TVs; they're just edge lit, so their version of HDR is not spectacular. You're kind of getting gypped, is my opinion. But you know, they exist. You can buy them.
So with kind of none of these TVs, in fact, we would buy at this point, based on what you're.
I mean, I'm quite happy to say get the Vizio. It's not HDR, but it is a great TV
Right.
in every other way, unless you want 3D. It doesn't do 3D, but I really don't think he wants 3D anyway.
So the second question is, should he wait to upgrade until more HDR options are available? And the answer is, if you want HDR,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
If you really just want 4K, well, then you can get a
Right.
Vizio.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because the thing, like Hisense, their 65-inch H10, it's out now. You can buy it on Amazon. It's $3,000 for a 65-inch. It is an HDR display. It has HDMI 2.0A. It has HDCP 2.2. It basically has the same specs as the Samsung JS 9500. It's full array local dimming. With quantum dots, so it actually has the expanded color as well. It's already 65 inches from Hisense for $3,000 this year. I have very little doubt that by this time next year, you'll be able to get that for $2,000. I actually think that's entirely possible to expect. So if you can last one more year with your current TV, I really do think you'll be able to get that for your budget next year. It's only 1 year away.
So lastly, he asked, what is the appropriate size for a 4K display at 11 feet?
11 feet away.
Dude, you are so not going to see 4K at 11 feet.
You really are.
Let's just put that right there. Let's just start with that. I know you want to upgrade your TV, and I'm all for that, and I'm all for helping you do that. But you are not going to see 4K from 11 feet unless you are using the binoculars that Rob uses to calibrate his display. You are not going to see it.
So to answer your question, from 11 feet away, if you were watching HDTV, 1080p, SEMPTE, the Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers, would tell you to have an 80-inch TV. That's for 1080p. That's a 30-degree field of view from 11 feet away. They would want you to have an 80-inch. If you want to potentially see the difference between 1080p and 2160p, just going to 4K resolution, you would want at a minimum a 110-inch screen and more like a 125-inch screen at 11 feet away, because you want to get to between a 40 and a 45-degree field of view to even potentially see the benefits of 4K just the resolution I'm talking about.
Yeah. Anyways, his wife wants a 55-inch screen, and he wants a 65-inch screen, and you're both wrong. You need 80.
And SEMPTE wants an 80. Yeah, SEMPTE, and that's 1080p 80. Keep that in mind.
Keep that in mind.
So
yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, if you're going to upgrade your TV, and 65 inches is the largest you could even conceive of, 4K is not the thing to worry about at all, but you could worry about HDR, because HDR you'll still be able to see. You'll be able to see the difference in HDR, even if it's 55 inches from 11 feet away. You'll be able to see that. So again, you're better off waiting, especially when $2,000 is your max budget. You're better off waiting a year and living with what you have now, because you could get a 65-inch HDR display next year, I think, for that price.
It's going to be close.
But the other thing you could do is you could buy a Vizio and go larger than 65 inches, because they have a 1080p E series, still full array local dimming. It's only 16 zones, but it's still full array local dimming. E series 1080p 70-inch for under $1,300. You could get they have a 70-inch M series for just under $2,000. So you could go 70 inches, no problem. Unfortunately, the E series maxes out at 70. Otherwise, I'd be telling you to get an 80-inch E series if it existed.
How many zones is the M series?
M series is 32.
Yeah, I'd go with that.
Or 36. Well, one of the two. It's over double it.
And You could just tell everybody it's 4K. They won't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you get the M series, it is a great looking TV.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're going to be disappointed with it. It's not HDR, so that's all.
All right. Well, we didn't get through all the questions tonight. I'm kind of disappointed. We have
Oh,
Ash, our artwork
yeah,
guy.
our
We
artwork
have
guy. Oh, I always
Tony.
want. He did
We
such a
have
good job on that artwork. I wanted.
Infinite Gary. We have Steve, and then we still have some stuff from Jonathan about the snake oil and all that stuff.
It
So
got added to. He's added more
I know he has. Yeah, I know.
articles.
I am aware of this. All right. So we do want to thank our listeners of the week again. We have Brian and Steve for the donations. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Ash again for his artwork. Thank you.
Hmm.
And Scott and Kevin for well, I guess mostly Scott for the mention on SVS, and Kevin for noticing it, and James for the DIY acoustic panel covers,
Yeah.
alpha version, which we will hopefully see a beta version. And if you'd like Ash to send you that artwork to put on it,
Oh yeah.
that would be badass.
With its
Ooh,
black background.
I know, I'm telling you. All right. Do I have to do the contact information again? I'm not doing the contact information again. We're going. We're done. It's 11 o'clock. All right.
All
Bravey
right.
Rant. I'm Tom Mantry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
The after party in a few, guys. If I can figure out a way to turn this video off.